Jake Morrison watched another cargo ship leave Luna Station through the thick glass windows of the observation deck. The ship looked ordinary, just like the hundreds of others that departed every week. Its hull was scratched and dirty from years of hauling rocks and metals from the outer planets. To anyone watching, it was just another mining vessel heading to the Kuiper Belt to dig up asteroids. But Jake knew better. Inside that ship were parts for the biggest secret in human history. The alien surveillance drones that constantly watched human space would scan the ship and see exactly what they expected to see. Mining equipment, food supplies, and tired workers heading out for another 6-month shift in the cold darkness beyond Neptune. They would never guess that hidden in specially shielded cargo, containers were components for weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Jake turned away from the window and walked down the corridor to the secure briefing room. His footsteps echoed in the metal hallway. Luna Station had been built to look like a simple trade hub, but beneath its ordinary surface lay the command center for the most ambitious military project in human history. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez was already waiting in the briefing room when Jake arrived. Her computer screen showed dozens of shipping schedules and cargo manifests. To the casual observer, it looked like normal trade documentation. But Lisa had spent 15 years developing the technology that made their deception possible. "How many ships this week?" Jake asked as he sat down across from her. 12, Lisa replied, not looking up from her screens, each one carrying hull sections for the Titan project. The Zephyrians scanned every single one of them and found exactly what we wanted them to find. Lisa's holographic camouflage system was a masterpiece of deception. Every cargo container that left human space was equipped with her technology. When alien sensors scanned the containers, they saw mining tools and spare parts. They had no idea they were actually looking at weapons components and armor plating. For ships the size of small moons, the project had started 30 years ago when humanity first made contact with the Galactic Council. The aliens had arrived with superior technology and treated humans like children. They gave humanity a small corner of space to live in and expected them to be grateful. The more advanced species saw humans as useful for manual labor and resource extraction, nothing more. What they didn't understand was that humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Every human child learned about the great battles of history in school. They studied strategy and tactics the way alien children studied art and music. When the aliens dismissed humanity as primitive and warlike, they made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Jake remembered the secret meeting where everything began. World leaders and military commanders had gathered in an underground facility on Earth. They all agreed on one thing: humanity would never be safe as long as they remained weak. If the aliens saw them as inferior, then humans would use that perception as a weapon. The plan was simple in concept but incredibly difficult to execute. Humanity would pretend to accept their place as a minor species, while secretly building a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of trying to match alien technology ship for ship, humans would build vessels so massive that sheer size would overcome any technological advantage. Captain Ben Hughes commanded one of the construction fleets working in the shadow of Saturn's rings. His crews worked in 3 shifts around the clock, assembling hull sections that would eventually form the skeleton of a ship larger than most asteroids. The work was dangerous and exhausting, but every person involved understood what was at stake. The construction sites were hidden using a combination of Lisa's holographic technology and careful positioning. To alien sensors, the areas around Saturn looked empty, except for the natural rings of ice and rock. They had no idea that human workers were assembling the largest warships ever built just a few million kilometers away. Ben's flagship, the Titan, was already 60% complete. The ship was roughly the size of Earth's moon, with a crew capacity of 50,000 people. Its primary weapons could crack a planet in half, and its armor was thick enough to survive direct hits from anything in the known alien arsenal. But the Titan wasn't unique. 5 other planet-sized ships were under construction at sites throughout the solar system. Each one was designed for a different role in the coming war. Some specialized in long-range bombardment, others in fighter support, and one was built specifically to serve as a mobile command center. The secrecy required was almost impossible to maintain. Every person involved in the project had to live a double life. During the day, they worked ordinary jobs in mines, factories, and shipping companies. At night, they traveled to hidden construction sites where they built weapons of unimaginable power. Families were separated for months at a time. Children grew up barely knowing their parents. The sacrifice was enormous, but everyone understood that failure meant the end of human independence forever. Lisa's team had developed new materials that were stronger and lighter than anything the aliens used. They had studied captured alien technology for decades, learning its weaknesses and limitations. What they discovered was that most galactic civilizations had become lazy. Their technology hadn't improved significantly in centuries because they had no real enemies to fight. Humans, on the other hand, had never stopped innovating. The same species that had gone from wooden clubs to nuclear weapons in just a few thousand years wasn't about to be intimidated by aliens who had grown soft from too many years of peace. The deception extended to every aspect of human society. Trade negotiations, diplomatic meetings, and cultural exchanges all served as cover for intelligence gathering. Human diplomats smiled and nodded while secretly documenting alien military capabilities and strategic weaknesses. Jake looked at the latest reports from construction sites across the solar system. Everything was proceeding on schedule. In 6 months, the first planet ship would be ready for its maiden voyage. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. As he read through the status updates, Jake felt a mixture of pride and anticipation. Humanity had pulled off the greatest deception in galactic history. Soon it would be time to reveal the truth to a universe that thought it knew everything about the species from the small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. The aliens were about to learn that underestimating humanity was the last mistake they would ever make. Commander Kate Sullivan sat in the underground facility on the far side of Earth's moon, surrounded by screens that showed the position of every human ship in the galaxy. Her job was perhaps the most important in the entire project, keeping all the secret construction sites connected and coordinated without the aliens detecting a single transmission. The quantum communication network Kate managed was unlike anything that had ever been built. Traditional radio signals could be intercepted and decoded by alien intelligence services, but Kate's system used principles that most alien species didn't even understand. The breakthrough had come from Dr. Alex Carter, a former video game developer who had become fascinated with quantum physics after humanity's first contact with aliens. Alex had spent years working on a problem that military scientists thought was impossible: how to send messages that looked like random background noise to anyone trying to intercept them. Alex walked into Kate's control room carrying a cup of coffee and a tablet full of technical diagrams. He still looked more like a programmer than a scientist, with his casual clothes and messy hair, but his work had made the entire planet ship project possible. The new relay stations are working perfectly, Alex said as he sat down next to Kate. The Zephyrians ran a deep scan of the asteroid belt yesterday and didn't detect anything unusual. Kate nodded as she watched data streams flowing across her monitors. Every message looked like natural cosmic radiation to alien sensors, but carried detailed construction schedules, supply requests, and tactical information between human facilities scattered across dozens of star systems. The beauty of Alex's system was its simplicity. Instead of trying to hide messages, he made them invisible by disguising them as something that existed everywhere in space. Background radiation was so common that alien sensors automatically filtered it out. They had no idea that humans were using it to coordinate the largest military buildup in galactic history. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes commanded the training facilities hidden inside Earth's moon. His job was to prepare crews for ships that had never been tested in real combat. The planet ships were so large and complex that operating them required skills no human had ever needed before. Ryan's training centers were marvels of simulation technology. Entire sections of the moon had been hollowed out and fitted with equipment that could recreate the experience of commanding a ship the size of a small planet. Thousands of trainees worked around the clock, learning to operate weapon systems that could level continents and navigate vessels that took hours to turn around. The psychological challenges were as difficult as the technical ones. Most human ships had crews of a few hundred people at most. The planet ships would carry 50,000 crew members each, requiring a level of coordination that had never been attempted before. But humans had one advantage that alien species lacked: a long history of large-scale military operations. While other civilizations had achieved peace centuries ago and forgotten how to organize armies, humans remembered every lesson learned from thousands of years of warfare. Ryan walked through the simulation center, watching teams of trainees practice complex maneuvers. In one room, a group of officers was learning how to coordinate the fire from 10,000 weapon turrets simultaneously. In another, navigation specialists practiced moving a moon-sized ship through asteroid fields without destroying anything important. The training was intense and demanding. Many candidates washed out in the first few weeks, but those who succeeded became part of an elite force that would soon shock the galaxy with their skill and determination. Dr. Amanda Foster led the research teams that had been studying alien technology for decades. Her laboratories were filled with captured equipment, weapons, and computers that human intelligence agents had acquired through years of careful espionage. What Amanda's teams discovered was both encouraging and disturbing. The alien technology was impressive, but it hadn't advanced significantly in centuries. Most galactic civilizations had become comfortable with their existing capabilities and saw no need to innovate. "They've grown lazy," Amanda explained to her staff during their weekly briefing. "Their weapons are powerful, but they're designed for fighting enemies with similar technology. They've never had to deal with opponents who think completely differently." Amanda's analysis revealed critical weaknesses in alien military doctrine. Their ships were fast and maneuverable, but lightly armored because they expected to fight similar vessels. Their weapons were precise and efficient, but not designed for targets as massive as the planet ships humans were building. Most importantly, alien commanders had no experience with total warfare. Their conflicts were limited affairs with rules and restrictions. They had never faced an enemy willing to use every possible advantage to achieve victory. The research teams worked to turn these weaknesses into human advantages. If alien ships were lightly armored, human weapons would be designed to punch through any protection. If alien commanders expected civilized warfare, humans would give them something completely different. Kate's communication network allowed all these different projects to work together seamlessly. Construction schedules from the Saturn facilities were shared with training centers on the Moon. Research breakthroughs from Amanda's laboratories were immediately transmitted to weapon designers working in the asteroid belt. The network also carried more personal messages. Families separated by the demands of the secret project could stay in touch through Kate's system. Children could talk to parents working on distant construction sites. Husbands and wives could share their hopes and fears about the future. Alex had built the network to be completely undetectable, but also completely reliable. In the 3 years since it became operational, not a single message had been lost or corrupted. The system that looked like random noise to alien sensors was actually more dependable than anything they used for their own communications. As Kate watched the status displays on her screens, she felt proud of what humanity had accomplished. The aliens thought they were monitoring a collection of primitive mining operations. They had no idea they were actually observing the final preparations for a war that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The network carried reports from every corner of human space. Construction was proceeding on schedule. Training programs were producing excellent results. Research teams were making breakthrough discoveries almost daily. Everything was coming together exactly as planned. Soon, the hidden facilities would go silent. The construction sites would power down their equipment. The training centers would graduate their final classes. The moment humanity had been preparing for would finally arrive. Kate looked at the countdown timer on her main screen. 6 months remained until the first planet ship would be ready for action. 6 months until the galaxy learned that the species they had dismissed as backward and primitive had been preparing the greatest surprise in military history. The network that had made it all possible would soon carry its most important message, the order to begin the war that would establish humanity's place among the stars. Ambassador Helen Price was sitting in the Galactic Council chamber on Proxima Station when the emergency alarms began to sound. The massive space station that served as the center of galactic government had never experienced anything like this before. Council members from dozens of different species looked around in confusion as their personal communicators started receiving urgent messages. Helen maintained her calm expression even as her own device buzzed with coded updates from Human Command. She had been waiting for this moment for years. Playing her role as humanity's representative, while knowing that everything was about to change forever. High Chancellor Vexion of the Zephyrian Empire stood up from his floating platform, his forearms gesturing dramatically as he spoke. 3 of our patrol fleets have gone silent in the last hour. No distress signals, no final transmissions. They simply vanished from our sensors. The council chamber erupted in concerned chatter. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the largest military force in the galaxy. For entire fleets to disappear without explanation was unprecedented. Other council members began checking their own military reports, looking for similar incidents. Helen knew exactly what had happened to those fleets, but she kept her face neutral as the aliens tried to understand what they were dealing with. The moment of revelation had finally arrived. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Titan, watching as his massive ship completed its transition from stealth mode to full visibility. The planet-sized vessel had been hiding in what the Zephyrians thought was empty space for the past 3 months, waiting for this exact moment. The Titan was a sight that defied imagination. Roughly the size of Earth's moon, its surface was covered with weapon emplacements, sensor arrays, and docking bays for smaller ships. The hull was dark gray, made from materials that were stronger than anything the aliens had ever encountered. Jake looked at the tactical displays showing Zephyrian ships scrambling to respond to the sudden appearance of something that shouldn't exist. Their sensors were telling them impossible things. No ship could be that large. No civilization had the resources to build something like the Titan. All weapon systems are online, reported Commander Sarah Bell from the weapons control station. We have target locks on the entire Zephyrian home fleet. Jake nodded as he watched enemy ships racing toward his position. The Zephyrians were bringing everything they had: battleships, cruisers, fighters, and support vessels. It was an impressive force that had conquered dozens of star systems over the centuries. It wasn't nearly enough. Captain Ben Hughes commanded the second planet ship, Perseus, as it emerged from its hiding place in the asteroid belt. The Perseus was slightly smaller than the Titan, but carried the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. Its primary cannon could manipulate gravity itself, turning the fundamental forces of the universe into a weapon. Ben watched on his screens as the first Zephyrian battleship came within range. The enemy vessel was sleek and elegant, built for speed and precision. It had probably never faced an opponent that wasn't playing by the same rules. Fire, Ben ordered quietly. The Perseus's main weapon activated with no visible effect. There was no energy beam, no missile, no explosion. Instead, the Zephyrian battleship simply came apart as the gravitational forces holding its atoms together were suddenly reversed. The 1,000-meter-long warship disintegrated into its component molecules in less than a second. The message was clear to any alien commander watching. Humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist. Back on Proxima Station, the council chamber had descended into chaos. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy as more human ships revealed themselves. The scale of what was happening was beyond anything the aliens had prepared for. Impossible, whispered Counselor Zektar of the Keth Dominion, one of the most experienced military leaders in galactic history. Humans don't have this kind of technology. Our intelligence reports show they're barely capable of interstellar travel. Helen finally stood up from her seat, drawing the attention of every being in the chamber. When she spoke, her voice was calm and measured, as if she were discussing routine trade negotiations instead of the collapse of the galactic order. Counselors, she said, I believe there has been a misunderstanding about human capabilities. We would like to request a revision of our territorial assignments and representation on this council. The understatement was so profound that several alien delegates actually laughed, despite the gravity of the situation. Then the real scope of what was happening began to sink in. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez watched from the command center on Luna Station as her holographic camouflage systems shut down across the solar system. For the first time in decades, alien sensors could see what humans had actually been building in the dark spaces between planets. Hidden construction facilities became visible, revealing the truth about what humans had been doing, while the galaxy thought they were just mining asteroids. Weapon platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites came online. Defense networks that had appeared to be shipping lanes revealed their true purpose. The deception had been so complete that even as the evidence appeared on their screens, many alien commanders refused to believe what they were seeing. How could a species that had been classified as primitive have hidden a military buildup of this magnitude? The answer was simple. The aliens had never understood what they were dealing with. They had looked at human history and seen only violence and chaos. They missed the organization, the planning, and the incredible ability to work together toward seemingly impossible goals. Jake Morrison's voice echoed across every human ship in the galaxy as he broadcast the message that officially ended humanity's time as a junior member of galactic civilization. To all alien forces, Jake said calmly, humanity formally rejects the current galactic order. We will no longer accept limitations on our expansion or representation. Any attempt to maintain the previous arrangement will be met with appropriate force. The Battle of Zephyria lasted exactly 47 minutes. The Zephyrian home fleet, which had seemed invincible just hours before, was systematically destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand, fired from ships they couldn't damage. The survivors fled to spread word of what they had witnessed. Captain Ben Hughes watched the last enemy vessel disappear into hyperspace and felt no satisfaction in the victory. This wasn't about conquest or revenge. It was about ensuring that humanity would never again be dismissed as irrelevant. The galaxy was about to learn that the species from the small blue planet had been preparing for this moment since the day they first looked up at the stars and dreamed of traveling between them. As reports of human victories reached every corner of galactic space, one thing became clear: the age of alien dominance was over. The species that had once been considered barely capable of space travel had just announced their intention to reshape the galaxy according to their own vision. The revelation was complete, and nothing would ever be the same. High Commander Zektar of the Keth Dominion had lived for over 300 years and commanded fleets in dozens of campaigns. He had never faced a defeat as complete as what had happened to the Zephyrians. As he studied the tactical reports from the destroyed home fleet, one thing became clear. Everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare was wrong. Zektar stood in the war room of his flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the current positions of every military asset in 6 star systems. Representatives from the Althari Republic, the Void Seekers, the Crystal Collective, and 24 other civilizations had agreed to join his coalition. It was the largest military alliance in galactic history. The humans have 4 confirmed planet ships, reported his intelligence officer, a thin Keith with silver skin who had spent decades studying alien military capabilities. Each one is approximately 12,000 kilometers in diameter. Our best estimates suggest they carry over 50,000 crew members and enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Zektar's tactical mind struggled to process the implications. Ships that large shouldn't be possible. The engineering challenges alone should have prevented any civilization from building them. Yet the humans had not only built them, but done so in complete secrecy. How many ships do we have in total? Zektar asked his staff. 2,043 combat vessels, came the reply, including 12 dreadnoughts, 47 battleships, and over 500 fighters. Every major civilization has contributed their best ships and crews. It was an impressive force that could have conquered half the galaxy under normal circumstances. Against opponents who followed the traditional rules of warfare, it would be unstoppable. But the humans had already proven they weren't interested in playing by anyone else's rules. Commander Kate Sullivan monitored the approaching coalition fleet from her command center on Luna Station. The alien ships were moving in perfect formation, their commanders confident that superior numbers would overcome any technological advantage humanity might possess. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Kate's screens showed the positions of every human asset in the Sol system. What the aliens saw as they approached was a single planet, with a few scattered defense stations. What was actually waiting for them was a fortress system that had been decades in the making. Hidden weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt came online as the coalition fleet entered the outer solar system. Each platform had been disguised as mining equipment or communication relays, invisible to alien sensors until the moment they were needed. The completed planet ships took positions that maximized their overlapping fields of fire. The Titan moved to defend Earth directly, while the Perseus, Apollo, and Hercules spread out to cover the approaches to the inner planets. The 4th ship, Ares, waited in the shadow of Mars, ready to strike at any enemy force that tried to bypass the main defenses. Captain Ben Hughes stood on the bridge of the Perseus, Watching the alien fleet spread out as it approached Jupiter, the enemy commanders were trying to use the gas giant's gravitational field to their advantage, probably hoping to divide the human forces and defeat them piecemeal. It was a sound tactical plan that might have worked against any other opponent, but the aliens still didn't understand what they were really fighting. "All human ships, this is Admiral Morrison," came the voice over the communication system. "Execute Operation Thunder. Show them what happens when you bring knives to a gunfight." The Battle of Jupiter began with the activation of weapon systems that redefined what was possible in space combat. The Perseus's gravity cannon fired first, but instead of targeting a single ship, Ben Hughes used it to create a massive gravitational anomaly that pulled the entire coalition formation into a tight cluster. Suddenly, over 2,000 alien ships found themselves trapped in a space barely 100 kilometers across. Their formations destroyed and their tactical advantages eliminated. They were sitting targets for weapons they couldn't even comprehend. The Titan's secondary weapons opened fire next. Millions of automated turrets covered the planet ship's surface, each one capable of tracking and destroying individual fighters. The storm of fire that erupted from the massive vessel was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Alex Carter's communication network carried tactical data between human forces with perfect coordination. While alien commanders struggled to reorganize their scattered fleets, human crews operated with a unity of purpose that their enemies couldn't match. Captain Lisa Storm commanded the weapon platforms hidden in the asteroid belt, revealing them for the first time as they emerged from their camouflaged positions. What the aliens had thought was empty space suddenly filled with gun emplacements, missile launchers, and energy weapons. The coalition fleet found itself caught in a crossfire between the planet ships and the hidden platforms. Enemy vessels that tried to escape the Jupiter gravity trap ran directly into fields of fire that had been planned and positioned years in advance. Zeki Tar watched in horror as his carefully assembled fleet was systematically destroyed. The human weapons were unlike anything in his experience. Their planet ships absorbed direct hits from his most powerful weapons without showing any damage, while their return fire tore through alien armor like it was made of paper. "Fall back," he ordered, but it was already too late. The gravitational anomaly created by the Perseus made escape impossible for most of his ships. Those that did manage to break free found themselves facing the Ares as it emerged from behind Mars. The fourth planet ship had been waiting for exactly this moment. Its primary weapon system was different from the others, designed specifically for destroying large numbers of enemies simultaneously. When it fired, entire sections of the coalition fleet simply ceased to exist. Commander Ryan Bell, who had trained crews for this exact scenario, watched as his students performed flawlessly under real combat conditions. The years of simulation training had prepared them for the chaos and confusion of battle. While alien crews panicked and made mistakes, human operators remained calm and focused. The psychological impact of the battle was as devastating as the physical destruction. The coalition had represented the combined military might of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Seeing it overwhelmed so completely shattered the confidence of species that had ruled space for millennia. Dr. Amanda Foster's research into alien weaknesses proved its worth as human weapons exploited every flaw in enemy designs. Alien ships built for speed found themselves unable to maneuver in the gravitational fields created by human weapons. Vessels designed for precision combat were overwhelmed by the sheer volume of fire from the planet ships. The battle lasted only 6 hours, but its effects would reshape galactic politics forever. When the shooting stopped, less than 200 alien ships remained functional, and most of those were too damaged to fight effectively. Zektar's flagship was among the survivors, but only because Admiral Morrison had deliberately allowed some ships to escape. The human commander wanted witnesses to spread word of what had happened at Jupiter. As the shattered remains of the coalition fleet limped away from the Sol system, one fact was clear to every surviving crew member. Humanity was no longer asking for a place at the galactic table. They were taking it by force, and no combination of alien powers was strong enough to stop them. The age of human dominance had begun, with a single battle that proved the species from the small blue planet was now the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. Every civilization that had dismissed them as primitive was about to learn the price of that mistake. 6 months after the Battle of Jupiter, Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council in a completely transformed chamber. The floating platforms that had once elevated alien delegates above the human representative had been removed. Now everyone sat at the same level around a circular table that emphasized equality rather than hierarchy. Jake no longer wore the simple uniform of a junior species requesting recognition. His new outfit bore the insignia of humanity's naval command, and behind him stood honor guards from the planet ship crews that had shocked the galaxy into submission. The message was clear without words being spoken. The old order was dead. Delegates, Jake began, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who held all the cards. Humanity appreciates your willingness to discuss the new territorial arrangements. We believe the revised borders reflect a more accurate assessment of each species' capabilities and contributions to galactic civilization. The territorial map that appeared in the center of the table showed changes that would have been unthinkable just a year before. Human space had expanded to include dozens of star systems that had previously been controlled by other civilizations. The expansion wasn't random. Every new system had strategic value or contained resources that humanity needed for its continued growth. Former High Chancellor Vexion of the Zephyrian Empire sat quietly as he studied the new boundaries. His species had lost nearly half their territory, including some of their most important industrial worlds. The Zephyrians, who had once been the dominant military power in the galaxy, were now reduced to a middle-tier civilization trying to avoid further losses. These terms are quite generous considering the circumstances, Jake continued. No species is being eliminated or enslaved. Everyone keeps their homeworlds and enough territory to maintain their populations. What changes is the balance of power and the rules by which we all operate. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez watched the proceedings from the observation gallery above the council chamber. Her holographic camouflage technology had been declassified and was now being offered to other species as part of the new trade agreements. It was a gesture of goodwill that also served to demonstrate how far ahead human technology had advanced. The planet ships had proven to be more than just weapons of war. Each massive vessel was essentially a mobile colony, capable of supporting hundreds of thousands of people in deep space. They had become symbols of human achievement and the foundation for rapid expansion across the galaxy. Captain Ben Hughes commanded the Perseus as it established humanity's first deep space colony in the Rigel system. The planet ship served as both protector and construction platform, its massive industrial facilities turning raw asteroids into habitat modules and infrastructure. The speed of human expansion amazed alien observers. Within months of the Jupiter battle, human colonies were being established in systems that had been considered too remote or dangerous for settlement. The planet ships made it possible to project power and support across distances that rendered traditional military thinking obsolete. Commander Kate Sullivan had expanded her communication network to cover the new human territories. The quantum entanglement system that had once hidden humanity's military preparations now coordinated the largest colonial expansion in galactic history. Every new settlement was connected to the network within days of establishment. The aliens were learning that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their ability to work together towards seemingly impossible goals. While other species required decades to plan and execute major projects, humans could mobilize entire populations in a matter of months. Dr. Amanda Foster's research teams were now working openly with alien scientists, sharing knowledge that had been classified for decades. The collaboration was producing breakthroughs that benefited everyone, but it also made clear how much the aliens had missed during their years of complacency. Your species has a remarkable ability to adapt and innovate, admitted Dr. Zareth, a Keth scientist who had been studying human technology. We've learned more about materials science in the past 6 months than we had in the previous century. Amanda smiled as she reviewed the latest research reports. We've always believed that competition drives innovation. When you're constantly trying to solve new problems, you develop new solutions. Maybe the galaxy just needed some fresh perspectives. The transformation wasn't just technological or military. Human culture was spreading throughout galactic space as other species encountered ideas and concepts they had never considered. Human music, literature, and art were finding audiences among aliens who had grown tired of their own ancient traditions. Ambassador Helen Price had been promoted to Secretary of Galactic Affairs, effectively making her the most powerful diplomat in human space. Her office on the new capital world of New Geneva coordinated relationships with dozens of alien civilizations, many of whom were eager to establish closer ties with humanity. The key to our success, Helen explained to a gathering of alien ambassadors, has always been our willingness to take risks and try new approaches. We don't assume that because something has always been done one way, it's the best way. The planet ships had revolutionized space travel and colonization, but they had also changed how wars were fought. The old model of fleet battles between similar forces was obsolete. Now a single planet ship could dominate an entire star system, making traditional military thinking irrelevant. High Commander Zektar, one of the few alien military leaders to survive the coalition battle, had become an unofficial student of human tactical doctrine. His analysis of the Jupiter engagement was being studied throughout the galaxy, as species tried to understand how they had been defeated so completely. They don't fight like any civilization we've encountered, Zektar explained to a gathering of military officers. They use deception, overwhelming force, and tactics that seem to violate every principle of civilized warfare. But they're incredibly effective. The psychological impact of humanity's rise continued to reshape galactic civilization. Species that had ruled for millennia found themselves adapting to a universe where their assumptions about power and technology no longer applied. Some embraced the changes, while others struggled to accept their reduced status. Captain Ryan Scott commanded the latest planet ship, Athena, as it explored regions of space that had never been visited by any galactic civilization. The massive vessel was equipped with advanced sensors and scientific equipment, leading humanity's push into the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. Each new discovery added to humanity's growing reputation as explorers and innovators. While other species had been content to control their existing territories, humans were pushing the boundaries of known space and making contact with civilizations that had been isolated for thousands of years. Admiral Morrison looked out at the galaxy from his office on the Titan and felt satisfied with what humanity had accomplished. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive had not only earned their place among the stars, but had become the dominant force in galactic civilization. The planet ships continued their patrols, ensuring that the new order remained stable. Their presence served as a constant reminder that humanity was committed to defending its interests and maintaining the balance of power that had emerged from the ashes of the old galactic hierarchy. As Jake prepared for another council meeting, he reflected on how far humanity had come. From a species confined to a single star system to the rulers of a galactic empire, the journey had required sacrifice, determination, and the willingness to bet everything on a plan that seemed impossible. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had intended from the beginning.